The night sky above the Vayari colony was not peaceful. It should have been filled with soft stars and the steady hum of life. Instead, smoke covered the horizon, rising from shattered domes and broken towers. Fires burned in the streets, and cries of the wounded echoed through the ruins. The Vayari were a gentle people. They were artists, thinkers, and builders of beautiful cities. They had never known real war. For generations, they had lived under the protection of treaties and alliances. But that night, all their beliefs collapsed when the raiders came. The raiders were merciless. They were scavengers from the dark edges of the galaxy, stronger and more ruthless than anything the Vayari had ever faced. Their ships surrounded the colony like hungry beasts. They bombarded the defenses, captured workers, and tore through homes. To the raiders, the Vayari were not people. They were prey. Inside the council chamber, panic spread. The leaders of the colony gathered around a cracked communication console. Their eyes glowed faintly in the dim light, their delicate hands trembling as they argued. "We cannot hold them off," one counselor cried. "Our defense drones are destroyed. Our militia is too small." "Then we must call for aid," shouted another. "Our allies in the nearby sectors, surely they will come." The colony's governor, an elder with silver scales across her skin, struggled to stay calm. She activated the long-range communication beacon, her voice shaking. "Transmit a distress call," she ordered. "Broadcast it wide. Someone, anyone, must hear us." The technicians obeyed. With desperate hands, they sent the signal across the stars. It was a plea born of fear, a cry that reached beyond their known allies. The words repeated again and again in the void. "This is the Vayari colony of Terun. We are under attack. Raiders are destroying our homes. Please, help us." For a moment, hope flickered. Perhaps their friends in the core would hear. Perhaps the great fleets of their protector nations would arrive. But in their desperation, they had made a mistake. The signal did not follow the intended path. It slipped past secured channels and drifted into forbidden space. It traveled further than they ever imagined, until it reached a world that no one dared to contact. That world was Earth. The Vayari did not realize what they had done. To them, it was only an error in coordinates, a small miscalculation by frightened technicians. But to the galaxy, the meaning was terrifying. Humanity was a name whispered with fear. Records called Earth a death world, a place so hostile that its inhabitants had been forged into predators beyond reason. The archives spoke of storms that could level mountains, oceans that swallowed ships, and creatures so violent they fought each other to extinction. Out of that crucible came humans, resilient, cunning, and dangerous. Most civilizations avoided them. Some feared them, others hated them. But none invited them. And yet, on this night of fire and despair, the Vayari had done the unthinkable. They had called the Deathworlders for help. As the colony continued to burn, the raiders tightened their grip. They laughed as they dragged captives into their ships. The Vayari huddled together in fear, praying their allies would come. They didn't know that far away in the depths of cold space, their message had already been received. A human warship stirred. It would not be long before the stars above Terun changed forever. The raiders had celebrated their victory too soon. Their ships glided through the sky above Terun like predators, scanning for survivors and selecting their next victims. Smoke filled the horizon, and fires reflected on the polished metal of their hulls. They believed nothing could stop them, not on this fragile, gentle world. Inside the colony, fear had reached its peak. Families huddled together in basements and tunnels, trying to escape the chaos. Children's cries echoed through the debris-filled streets, and the wounded moaned, unable to move. The counselors, once dignified and calm, were now pale and shaking, eyes darting toward the dark sky as they waited, praying for help that might never come. Then, from the void of space, came a shadow. At first, it was only a glint, a small flicker of light against the endless black. But slowly it grew, moving faster than any known vessel should. The Vayari watched with awe and dread. Their sensors picked up a massive object, far larger than any ship they had ever built. It was not graceful. It did not glide with elegance. It was a warship, immense and imposing, bristling with weapons that no Vayari eyes had seen before. The raiders noticed it too, and their confidence faltered. Their laughter faded. The vessels hesitated, scanning the approaching giant with growing unease. The Vayari Council gasped. They had sent a signal, yes, but they had not meant for this. They had not called this a monstrosity. Their hearts froze with the terrifying realization that they had summoned the Deathworlders. The ship unfolded itself in orbit like a living predator. Its hull was blackened and scarred, showing signs of countless battles survived. Long metallic, wings extended from its sides, bristling with weapons that seemed to hum with raw power. Its name, emblazoned on the side in stark letters, glowed faintly in the atmosphere. UNS Nemesis. The Vayari froze. The humans were not gentle. The stories from the Galactic archives were not exaggerations. These beings were dangerous. They were called Deathworlders for a reason. Their homeworld forced them to survive the impossible, to fight and endure when all others would die. Now they had arrived. The raiders, sensing the power of the approaching ship, tried to coordinate attacks, but their weapons seemed insignificant. The Nemesis did not fire at first. It hovered in the void like a shadow, observing, waiting. Its very presence carried a warning, a calm that did not promise mercy. Inside the council chamber, the Vayari elders whispered prayers. They had called for aid, hoping for friends, allies, perhaps reinforcements, but they had not imagined what would answer. Their fear was mixed with a strange awe. This ship could annihilate their enemies with ease. But could it protect them, or would it see them as part of the galaxy's weakness and crush them too? Then the raiders made a fatal mistake. A small frigate darted forward, firing its lasers. It did not matter. The Nemesis responded. Its weapons erupted, not with reckless fury but precise, controlled devastation. One shot struck a raider ship and the hull melted like glass. Another hit sent a cruiser spinning, ripping it apart before it could even react. The void became filled with fire and sparks, and the remaining raiders faltered, fear overtaking their greed. The Vayari watched in silence, hearts pounding, as humans displayed power they had never imagined. This was not war, it was judgment. The humans did not hesitate, they did not bargain. Every move was final. In that moment, the Vayari understood the truth. Help had come, but it had come in a form far beyond their imagination. They had not called friends. They had not called diplomats. They had called predators. And now the predators were here, and the stars above Tehran would never be the same again. The burning debris of the raiders' ships floated silently in space. Their cries and alarms had long since ended, replaced by the eerie calm of destruction. The Vayari watched from the ground, their hearts still pounding, unable to comprehend the power that had just appeared above them. What had they called? What had they summoned? Then a voice cut through the static of their communication channels. It was calm, measured, and unlike anything they expected. This is Captain Elias Kane of the United Nations ship Nemesis. We received your distress signal. Do you require assistance? The words echoed across the colony's ruined plazas. The counselors froze. Human voices were not like those of the Vayari. They were deeper, harsher, yet somehow controlled. They carried authority but not anger. There was no immediate threat. Still, fear gripped the Vayari. Their histories were full of stories about humans, Deathworlders, monsters, killers, survivors, of a world so harsh that only the strongest, smartest, and most ruthless endured, and now one was speaking directly to them. The raiders, however, had no hesitation. They recovered quickly, desperate to escape or attack before the humans could fully engage. A frigate surged forward, guns blazing, hoping to test this unknown force. The Nemesis did not move at first. It did not retreat, it did not panic, it did not flinch. Then, with terrifying precision, it answered. Energy beams tore through the void, striking the raider ship. Hulls split apart. Shields collapsed. The raiders had never encountered weapons like these. Panic erupted in their fleet as more human fire rained down. Ships spun uncontrollably, screaming alarms, before exploding into clouds of metal and fire. The Vayari huddled together, eyes wide. They had expected war, but not this. Perfection. The humans were not reckless. They were surgeons with death as their scalpel. Every movement, every shot, was exact. Every action was decisive. Then the nemesis moved closer. Massive wings of black metal extended, scanning the battlefield. It was a predator in the stars, and the raiders were its prey. The remaining raiders scrambled to escape, but the humans pursued with relentless speed. No mercy, no hesitation. One by one, the raider ships disintegrated, leaving only silence and floating debris. The Vayari had never seen such a display of power. Their minds struggled to grasp it. Was this justice or punishment? They had not meant to summon humans. They had only hoped for aid. And yet, here it was, stronger, fiercer, beyond anything they had imagined. The human voice returned over the comms. Calm, unyielding. Stand down. Resistance is futile. We do not want further bloodshed. The words were chilling, but strangely reassuring. They carried authority, yes, but also purpose. They were here to protect, not destroy. Slowly, the Vayari Council realized the truth. They had called for help, and the humans had answered. Not as monsters, not as conquerors, but as something far more terrifying to their enemies, guardians. The smoke cleared from the colony. The fires burned lower. The raiders were gone, scattered across the void or reduced to wreckage. For the first time that night, the Vayari dared to breathe freely. They were alive. Their people, their homes might survive after all, but the humans did not leave. The massive warship remained in orbit, silent yet vigilant. Its presence was both a warning and a promise. The Vayari knew, in their hearts, that this was only the beginning of an encounter they would never forget. And somewhere deep in the council chamber, the elder whispered almost to herself, "We did not call friends, but perhaps fate has its own way of answering cries for help." The stars above Tehran shone differently now, not with fear, not with despair, but with the first glimmer of hope, delivered by creatures no one had dared hope for. Humans. The Vayari could hardly believe their eyes. The raider fleet was gone. Scattered pieces of burning ships floated silently across the void. The colony was still in ruins, but for the first time in hours the cries of terror were replaced by a fragile, shaky silence. Yet, the Vayari were not at peace. Fear still gripped their hearts, tighter than any chains. They had summoned humans, the Deathworlders, and those creatures were nothing like anyone had imagined. Their legends had said humans were monsters, unstoppable predators forged by harsh planets and brutal survival. But now the truth was more terrifying. Humans were strong, precise, and efficient beyond reason. In the council chamber, the elders whispered anxiously. Their hands shook. "Are they going to turn on us?" one asked, his voice barely audible. "We called them. We begged them. Will they punish us for disturbing them?" Outside, the humans' warship hovered silently above the colony. It was massive, black and scarred, its weapons still glowing faintly with energy. The Vayari could feel its presence through the trembling ground. Every sensor, every instrument, every instinct of the Vayari screamed caution. The humans were warriors, warriors of a world that did not forgive weakness. And yet, they had saved them. Medical and engineering pods began to deploy from the Nemesis. Drones and landing vehicles carried supplies. The Vayari watched from the shadows as humans moved with astonishing speed and efficiency. They lifted debris, carried the wounded, and restored broken communication links. Not a single action was wasted. Every move had a purpose. Every gesture, even the simplest, carried quiet authority. The Vayari children peered from broken walls and rubble. Their eyes were wide with fear and curiosity. A small girl clutched her mother's tentacle and whispered, trembling, Are they going to hurt us? A human medic knelt beside her. His armor was heavy, but his movements were gentle. He extended a hand, showing nothing but care. No, he said quietly. We're here to help you. You are safe now. The girl's mother hesitated, then slowly let go. Hope, fragile and unfamiliar, began to creep into their hearts. Still, fear lingered in the council chamber. Could they trust these humans? Could they rely on Deathworlders who were known across the galaxy as brutal and unstoppable? The Vayari had learned to fear strength, to fear survival that came at the cost of others. And now, they were face to face with that strength. The human captain, Elias Kane, addressed the colony over the communication system. His voice was calm, firm but without threat. We will stay as long as necessary. We will help the wounded, repair your shelters, and ensure that no further attacks succeed, but you must remain calm and follow instructions. Even the elders felt a chill at his words. There was no negotiation here. Humans did not ask permission to act. They acted. And when they acted with certainty. Yet despite their fear, the Vayari could not deny what was happening. Slowly, hope began to mix with the terror. Their colony could survive. Their people could be saved. The humans had brought a force that even the most dangerous raiders could not match. The council realized something they had never considered. Sometimes strength was not meant to destroy. Sometimes power could protect. Night fell over Tehrun, but the fires in the colony seemed smaller now, less threatening. The humans worked tirelessly through the darkness, their lights cutting through smoke and dust. For the Vayari, it was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. They were witnessing something they had never thought possible, a species capable of annihilating their enemies, yet choosing to save those weaker than themselves. And in that fear, a seed of trust began to grow. For the first time that night, the Vayari dared to believe that perhaps, just perhaps, the legends of the Deathworlders were only partly true. They were fearsome. They were deadly, but they were not without honor. And as the humans continued their work, the colony realized something more. The line between terror and hope was thinner than anyone had imagined, and tonight, it had been crossed. The Vayari watched from a distance as humans moved through the ruins of their colony. At first, the sight was terrifying. They expected monsters, creatures who would crush everything in their path. But the humans, they were different. They were precise, deliberate, and careful. Every step, every motion had purpose. Medical teams, descended from the Nemesis carrying supplies and tools the Vayari had never seen. They treated wounds with calm efficiency, their hands gentle despite their size and strength. They lifted debris to free trapped families, repaired broken systems, and set up shelters for those who had lost everything. The council observed silently, torn between awe and fear. How could such dangerous beings choose to save instead of destroy? Their legends were true. Humans were deadly, merciless when provoked. But here they were protectors. They were guardians, moving with quiet authority yet offering help instead of harm. A small group of Vayari children approached, curious despite the fear that lingered in their hearts. One little boy clutched a broken toy in his hand and stared at a human engineer who was repairing a collapsed bridge. The human looked down and smiled, kneeling so that his eyes met the boy's. "Don't worry," he said softly. "We'll fix everything. You're safe now." The boy's eyes widened, a mixture of fear and wonder. Slowly he stepped forward, handing the toy to the human. The engineer accepted it, giving a nod of reassurance. A small spark of trust, fragile and new, began to grow. Inside the council chamber, the elders whispered among themselves. They had always feared strength. In their history, the strong often destroyed the weak. But these humans were different. Their power was terrifying, yet it was wielded to protect, not to dominate. Governor Lyra, the colony's elder, stepped forward, Her voice trembled as she spoke over the comms to the humans. We did not expect such help. Your actions are beyond anything we imagined. Why do you do this? Why risk yourselves for us? There was a pause. Then the voice of Captain Elias Kane answered, calm but firm. We do not fight to destroy. We fight to protect those who cannot protect themselves. Your call reached us. We came because someone needed help, and we do not leave those in need behind. The Vayari counselors exchanged glances. The answer was simple, but its weight was enormous. Humans were not motivated by fear, by greed, or by desire for control. They acted because they had chosen to. They acted because they understood what it meant to suffer, to be powerless, and to hope that someone would come. Outside, the humans continued their work. They organized teams to rebuild essential structures. Engineers and medics moved with precision, guiding the Vayari workers without condescension. There was no arrogance, no boast, only action. Slowly, the Vayari began to participate, at first cautiously lifting debris or carrying supplies under the watchful eyes of their human allies. Step by step, they felt a strange sense of relief. For the first time in what felt like forever, they believed their colony could survive. They believed they could live. The Vayari children played among the humans, laughing softly as they explored, repaired buildings. The adults watched with disbelief. The beings they had called monsters, the Deathworlders, were not only saving their lives but teaching them resilience. Governor Lyra spoke again, her voice steady but emotional. We called for aid by mistake, but perhaps it was no mistake at all. You have shown us that strength does not have to destroy. That power can protect. That fear can be turned into hope. Captain Kane's voice replied over the comms, steady and unwavering. Remember this, Vayari. You are not weak. You are survivors. And when you are faced with danger again, do not hesitate to act. Help can come from unexpected places, but courage comes from within. For the first time in hours, the Vayari felt true hope. The humans had come as predators of legend, but they had stayed as guardians. And in that truth, the colony began to breathe again. Days passed since the humans had arrived. The Vayari colony slowly began to heal. Buildings that had been shattered were reinforced. Fires that had raged for hours were extinguished. The wounded were treated and stabilized, and the survivors found food and shelter. Yet despite these improvements, the Vayari counselors remained uneasy. Fear lingered in their hearts. Humans were powerful, far more than any other species they had ever encountered. Even now, as the humans worked tirelessly to save the colony, the Vayari could not shake the legends of the Deathworlders. These beings were known across the galaxy as unstoppable predators, capable of crushing entire fleets. They were survivors of a brutal planet that forged warriors stronger than any other. Governor Lyra called a council meeting. The chamber was quiet, except for the soft hum of energy from the communication consoles. We must decide, she said. Can we trust them? Can we allow them to remain on our soil? The counselors exchanged nervous glances. Some argued that the humans could be dangerous if angered. Others whispered that calling them a mistake was an understatement. But one voice spoke above the rest, clear and steady. They saved us, said Elder Tiran. They destroyed our attackers without hesitation, yet spared us. They repaired what was broken and healed the wounded. We are alive because of them. What more do we need to know? The room fell silent. Every counselor felt the weight of Tiran's words. It was true. The humans had come as monsters in legend, but they had acted as guardians in reality. They had proven, through action and not words, that their purpose was to protect, not to dominate. Meanwhile, outside the council chamber, humans continued their work. Teams moved in perfect coordination, helping Vayari survivors lift debris, rebuild homes, and distribute supplies. Captain Elias Kane walked among them, his presence calm yet commanding. The humans did not speak of glory or pride. They simply acted. Their deeds were louder than any words could ever be. Governor Lyra made her decision. She stepped to the central comms console and spoke. Captain Kane, we We grant you permission to remain in our colony as long as necessary. Your presence is welcomed. The voice of Cain replied, calm yet respectful. Thank you, Governor. Lyra, we do not seek to rule or to control. We are here to protect and to help you rebuild. We will leave only when your colony is safe and capable of standing on its own. The council felt a mixture of relief and awe. They had made the choice to trust despite fear, and in that choice, they discovered a truth they had never known. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to act in spite of it. Slowly, the Vayari began to participate more actively in the rebuilding. Humans guided them without condescension, teaching them how to fortify structures, organize supplies, and defend themselves for the future. The elders watched their people regain confidence, and hope took root where fear had once dominated. In the evenings, the humans and Vayari shared quiet moments. Children played together, learning from their new allies. Adults exchanged stories, slowly building trust across species. Every interaction reinforced the lesson that strength could be used for protection, not just for destruction. Governor Lyra reflected on the events that had brought the humans to their colony. What had begun as a mistake, an SOS sent to the wrong coordinates, had become a turning point. The Deathworlders, feared across the galaxy, had shown them mercy, care, and unparalleled skill. And the choice to trust them had changed everything. When night fell, the colony looked up at the stars with new eyes. The humans remained vigilant above, a silent shield against any future threat. The Vayari no longer saw monsters. They saw guardians. They saw hope. And in that hope, they found the courage to believe that their colony and their people could survive anything the galaxy might throw at them. Part 7. The Legacy. The day had come for the humans to leave. The Vayari colony had been rebuilt as much as possible under the circumstances. Shelters were repaired, the wounded had recovered, and the survivors were stronger than they had been before the attack. Yet even amid the signs of recovery, the Vayari felt a strange emptiness. The humans who had saved them would soon vanish into the stars, leaving behind only memories and lessons. Captain Elias Cain stood at the edge of the colony, looking over the Vayari people. His massive warship, the Nemesis, loomed silently above, engines humming softly. The humans had not sought recognition, medals, or thanks. They had acted out of choice, out of duty, and out of a belief that no one should face danger alone. The Vayari Council assembled one final time to bid them farewell. Governor Lyra stepped forward, her eyes shining with both gratitude and sorrow. You came to us when we were weakest, she said, her voice trembling. We called by mistake, but perhaps it was fate. You showed us courage, strength, and mercy. We will never forget this. Cain nodded, his expression calm but heavy with understanding. We do not ask for gratitude. We only ask that you remember this. Strength is a gift, not a weapon. Use it to protect, to survive, and to help those who cannot help themselves. That is the true measure of power. The Vayari children approached hesitantly, holding gifts and drawings for the humans. Cain knelt down, accepting them with care. Thank you, he said softly. We will carry these with us, as reminders that hope can bloom even in the darkest times. As the humans prepared to depart, the Vayari gathered outside the rebuilt council chambers. They watched as the Nemesis slowly rose, its massive wings stretching into the void. For a moment there was silence, as if the stars themselves held their breath. Then Cain's voice came over the comms one last time. Vayari of Teirun, remember this night. Remember that even when you face fear, even when the odds seem impossible, courage and unity can overcome anything. Do not call us in fear alone. Call us only when it matters. But know this, we will answer, no matter what. The Nemesis ignited its engines and lifted into the sky. Its massive form shimmered as it rose, above the colony, disappearing into the endless expanse of stars. The Vayari watched until it was nothing but a distant glint, a memory of power and mercy combined. Governor Lyra turned to her counselors, her voice soft but resolute. "They were not monsters," she said. "They were guardians. They came because we were in need, and they acted without hesitation. They have changed us. They have shown us that strength can protect, that fear can be overcome, and that hope is never lost." The elders nodded in agreement, their hearts filled with both pride and humility. For the first time, the Vayari truly understood the stories about humanity, not the ones told with fear, but the ones whispered in awe and respect. Humans were dangerous, yes, but they were also capable of the highest honor, courage, and compassion. The weeks that followed, the colony continued to rebuild, stronger and more united than before. Stories of the Deathworlders spread across Tehran, not as legends of terror but as tales of guardianship and bravery. Children grew up hearing about the humans who had come from the stars to save them. Adults carried lessons of courage and mercy in their hearts. And somewhere across the endless galaxy, the Nemesis moved silently among the stars, leaving a legacy that would be remembered for generations, not as conquerors, not as destroyers, but as protectors. The Vayari learned a truth they would carry forever. Sometimes the strongest warriors are the ones who choose to save, not to destroy. And sometimes a call for help, even a mistake, can bring hope beyond imagination.